Good evening, Facebook. Today I am going to talk about the 6 signs that you are operating from a spirit of avoidance in your toxic relationship. So, sign number 1, anger and resentment has been building up. Okay? So, just to give you a backdrop on this particular story, we have David's son Absalom decides that he is very angry, actually. And he's angry because David's son Amnon has tricked his sister Tamar, David's daughter, okay, into bringing him some food. He pretends like he's sick. She brings him some food and she ends up being assaulted. So David is king, right? And plus, this is his daughter. He does nothing about the whole situation. Nothing as the father and nothing as the king. Okay? When David heard all of this, he was furious. And instead of him having a family meeting and dealing with the sin, he didn't do anything. It was apparent that he was hurting. And it was the opportune time for him to get the feelings worked out. But guess what? His anger, bitterness, and resentment just kept festering. And this went on for 2 entire years. And when it comes to the toxic relationships, you walk around in your toxic relationship. You're angry. The bitterness and resentment is setting in. You're walking around rolling your eyes. Oh, I can't stand him. You're rolling your eyes. You're upset. But at the same time, you are refusing to deal with the issue at hand. You are refusing to deal with the sin that's in this relationship. Okay? But you're just, when people mention it or you think about it yourself, even with all this anger, bitterness, and resentment taking place, you're basically just turning your head and going up and I don't see anything. I don't hear anything. I don't know what's going on. And how long can that go on? Not too long, right? Before your heart starts to be affected. Okay, so that was sign number 1. So now we are on sign number 2, that you are operating from a spirit of avoidance in your toxic relationship. And sign number 2 is that the role of the individuals involved in the conflict are switched around. Okay, those roles are switched around. When people who have been given authority fail to exercise that authority in bringing justice in a situation, the other members involved indirectly appoint themselves to that individual's role. That is exactly how it happens. And since David was the king and he did not act on his son Amnon defiling his daughter, his son Absalom felt that he needed to do something to protect his sister whose reputation had been completely destroyed. Okay? So he took on the role as king, and Absalom also took on the role as father. Okay? By having his brothers to get drunk enough to kill their brother Amnon. And the scripture in 2 Samuel 13:28-29 says, Absalom ordered his men, listen, when Amnon is in high spirits from drinking wine, and I say to you, strike Amnon down, then kill him. Don't be afraid. Haven't I given you this order? Be strong and brave. So Absalom's men did to Amnon what Absalom had ordered. Then all the king's sons got up, mounted their mules, and fled. So that was 2 Samuel 13:28-29. So think about this. Absalom took the role as king and as father. But in taking this role, he decides the way to deal with what his brother has done, okay? His brother's sin is to go ahead and have him murdered, okay? He decides the way to deal with this conflict avoidance on his father's side is to have his brother Amnon murdered. Okay? And then secondly, the other thing I noticed here is that Absalom was acting as if he was God, not only in murdering his brother, but in the simple fact of the words he used, which if you think about them, those are words that God used when he wanted to encourage Joshua and some of the other men in the Bible several times, telling them, do not be afraid, do not be discouraged. Have I not told you this? So in this situation, Absalom's exact words were, don't be afraid. Haven't I given you this order? Be strong and brave. This is what he told his men in preparation, basically in order to pump them up to go and kill their brother, to kill his brother, okay? It's just crazy. It's wild. And the story gets even crazier. We're like at soap opera situation here, okay? So your kids, when you're in this toxic relationship and you decide that you're not going to do anything about it, your kids are the ones who are taking over your role. All of the roles get switched around. Remember, that's the second sign. So your kids are trying to figure out, how can I fix this? Something is wrong, and I need to be the one responsible for fixing it, to figure out what's wrong and to fix this problem, okay? So now we're at sign number 3. The third sign that you are operating from a spirit of avoidance in your toxic relationship, okay? The third sign is avoiding conflict avoids the inevitable. And that inevitable is dealing with the problem. So we already have, first of all, we got an issue of sexual assault that has taken place where Amnon defiled his sister Tamar. Okay, so now we got the second issue. We've got murder. Absalom decides, okay, Dad, you're not going to do anything about it. I will. I'm having my men to murder Amnon. Okay, so that's the second thing. Okay, so we got all of that has taken place. David has decided to do nothing about it. Other people are just trying to figure out what's going to happen. 2 years have passed, okay? Amnon gets murdered, okay? So after all of this drama, all of this has taken place, Absalom, number 1, decides, I'm peacing out. Absalom leaves, number 1. Second thing, Absalom comes back. But he does not come back until Joab has to beg David. David resists. Then Joab gets this wise woman in the city, basically, to convince David, to try to trick David into bringing Absalom back. She does a poor job of it. And David finally gives in and says, okay, bring him back. Okay? So number 1, Absalom peaced out. Number 2, David allows Absalom to come back. But this is the one condition. I don't want to see his face. That's basically what he told Joab. Like, yeah, go ahead. You can bring him back, but I don't want to see him. Okay? So now we get to number 3. Okay? Absalom calls for Joab so that he could see the king. Because he's just like, okay, we still haven't dealt with the issue at hand, which is Amnon assaulting Tamar. So Amnon is dead, but it still haven't been dealt with. Them as a family, or the town with him as king, they have not dealt with it, okay? All right, so Absalom called for Joab. Nothing. Then number 4, Absalom called for Joab again. Nothing. Okay. You would think by now something would have been done, but no, that would have been too much like right, is what my grandmother would have said had she still been living, okay? That was one of her sayings. So now we get to number 5. Absalom burns down Joab's field, which is right next to his. So you got all of the people that's reporting to Joab, and they're coming to him. Your field is on fire, right? When you think about it, right? Like Alicia Keys, this girl is on fire. His field was on fire. Okay, so he figured, okay, now I got your attention. Are you going to let me see the king? So number 6, guess what? David agrees to see him after Absalom burns down Joab's field. But guess what? He's still avoiding conflict, okay? Because when he decides, okay, I'm going to go ahead and see him, he doesn't discuss anything about the conflict that's going on. He kisses Absalom. And that's the end of the exchange. We have assault, the issue of assault. We have murder. We still have those two issues that have not been dealt with. And in your toxic relationship, people are calling you, they're texting you, they're emailing you, they're coming to you in your face, they're telling you about stuff that's gone on. You've got pictures, you've got everything, and you're going like this, I don't see anything, I don't know what's going on. And you're making up excuses for that other person in the toxic relationship. You're making up excuses for their behavior. This spirit of avoidance has just permeated your soul at this point. Which leads us to sign number 4. The fourth sign that you are operating from a spirit of avoidance in your toxic relationship. And that sign is that the spirit shows up in the other people in your household and other people that you hang out with, okay? That is what's going on. So Absalom was mad at his father. But guess what? He was doing the same thing. In the very beginning, after the assault took place, he was hurting. The family was in pain because of Amnon's sin. The scripture says exactly in 2 Samuel 13, 21 through 22, and Absalom never said a word to Amnon, either good or bad. He hated Amnon because he had disgraced his sister Tamar. So he was getting on his dad, but then he was not addressing anything either. He just kept the bitterness and anger festering inside of him as well. And when it comes to spiritual leaders who are in charge of groups, when you have the spirit of avoidance on you and whatever spirits, other spirits you have going on, the people who have been following you for a long time, they become infected. It's just like a virus that has gone out of control, whether it's the spirit of avoidance, a spirit of entitlement, spirit of envy, jealousy, competition. It all starts with the leader. Okay? And so the thing about it is, after doing this for a while in your toxic relationship, your children are leaking out the spirit of avoidance. Like I said, your friends are leaking out. Your ministry partners are leaking out. But for some reason, you are so blinded, you don't even have a clue. Which brings us to the fifth sign, that you are operating from a spirit of avoidance in your toxic relationship. Okay? And that sign is that long-term avoidance leads to a dramatic, painful ending. Okay? Dramatic, painful ending. Absalom got tired of being ignored. And even if it got to the point where he was punished severely for what he had done, he wanted David to do something. So what did he do? He decided, I'm going to go after my dad. I'm going to kill him and everybody with him. David and his soldiers fled on foot with Absalom on a mission to find them. Absalom and all these people, he had led a revolt against his dad. This is how dramatic it ended up being. As circumstances would have it, Absalom's hair was caught in the branches of a tree, and he was left hanging from them. And while hanging there, Joab, who's David's right-hand man, used this to his advantage to finish off Absalom, since none of the other soldiers acted in any type of manner. Joab said, and this is exactly from 2 Samuel 18, 14 through 15, I'm not going to wait like this for you. So he took 3 javelins in his hand and plunged them into Absalom's heart while Absalom was still alive in the oak tree. 10 of Joab's armor bearers surrounded Absalom, struck him, and killed him. In that toxic relationship that you are in, your kids and their lives are in danger. And whoever hangs around you a lot, their lives become a pinpoint for danger. Okay? And when I say danger, I literally have not heard of too many situations where there has been a good ending. And when I say a good ending, I'm saying like reasonable without like it being very contentious and high conflict. Okay? It's usually ending up something dramatic. Fake suicide, murder, etc. You name it. Okay? Nothing good happens from having a spirit of avoidance. And it reminds me of a movie that I watched called For Colored Girls. And Felicia Rashad, I know you guys are probably familiar with her as an actress. She's talking to the other woman who is on the couch and has been on there for like weeks on end from a spirit of depression because her kids had been killed by their dad. And she says, I should have done something. I should have done something. I should have done something to prevent this. And she says, well, baby, you should have done something a long time ago. Doing something about this. That's not where you began. You got to take responsibility for what you failed to do a long time ago. The spirit of avoidance, it festers and it turns into a situation that was small into one that gets out of control. Okay? Which brings us to the sixth and final sign that you are operating from a spirit of avoidance in your toxic relationship. And sign number 6 is that your soul tie has you bound to the person who just tried to kill you. Okay? Just tried to kill you. All right. So instead of King David being excited that his life and the others' lives were spared, he mourned excessively. This caused his soldiers to feel ashamed for what they had done. And the scripture says, then Joab went to the house to the king and said, today you have humiliated all your men who just saved your life and the lives of your sons and daughters and the lives of your wives and concubines. You love those who hate you and you hate those who love you. You've made it clear today that the commanders and their men mean nothing to you. I see that you would be pleased if Absalom were alive today and all of us were dead. 2 Samuel 19:5-6. And at this point, somebody had to speak up and tell David the truth. And so a lot of times in these toxic relationships, you have just missed near death from stalking and all kind of stuff. It got out of control. Like I said, that dramatic, painful ending for sign number 5. Friends have helped you out and you are regretting the fact almost that they helped you. And they're trying to figure out like, wait a minute, your life was in danger, but you are upset because I helped you. But that's what happens when the spirit of avoidance has taken place in your toxic relationship. Instead of being thankful for those people that came and took you under their wing, you are upset at the fact that they tried to help you. So I want to review just one more time before I end this chatting with Coach Tina session. We went over the 6 signs you're operating from a spirit of avoidance in your toxic relationship, okay? And number 1, that was anger and resentment is building up. Number 2, that is you are avoiding conflict, which is avoiding the inevitable, okay? Number 3, the roles of the individuals involved in the conflict are switched around, okay? And then we've got number 4, the 4th way, the 4th sign that you're operating from a spirit of avoidance in your toxic relationships. And that's the spirit shows up in other family members and people that you hang around with closely. Number 5, long-term avoidance leads to a dramatic, painful ending. Almost always. Trust me. Number 6, your soul tie has bound you to the person who just tried to kill you. Okay? So that was the 6 signs that you're operating from a spirit of avoidance in your toxic relationships. Remember, you can break unhealthy relationship patterns. You are enough. And how do you know that? Because God says you are enough by the redemptive blood of his son Jesus on the cross. You can reclaim your power and identity. Grab your keys to the kingdom and get started. God bless you, Facebook friends. Until next time.